Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that echoes through history, a man whose influence reshaped Europe forever. But what if I told you that his genius wasn't solely in his military strategies or his brilliant campaigns, but in something far more subtle, far more powerful: his mastery of the human mind? Napoleon was a manipulator, a strategist, and a psychological genius whose ability to read, influence, and control people allowed him to rise from obscurity to become one of the most feared and admired leaders in history. Today, we're going to step inside the mind of a tyrant, exploring the dark psychology that fueled his rise to power, the tricks he used to control soldiers, politicians, and even his closest allies, and the lessons we can learn from his extraordinary life. Napoleon was born in 1769 on the rugged island of Corsica, only months after France had acquired the island from the Republic of Genoa. His family was modest, neither rich nor influential, and from a young age he was acutely aware that he was an outsider in French society. This sense of being an outsider shaped his personality and ambitions. He learned early that charm, intelligence, and subtlety could achieve what wealth and status could not. Napoleon's ambition was immense, but it was matched by his keen understanding of people. He had an almost uncanny ability to sense fear, desire, and weakness in others, traits he would exploit for the rest of his life. As a young officer, Napoleon's rise was meteoric. He combined skill with audacity, but what made him truly remarkable was how he influenced those around him. He understood that people are motivated not only by fear and reward, but also by perception and narrative. Napoleon carefully curated his image, presenting himself as both approachable and extraordinary. He cultivated a persona that made people feel loyal, inspired, and even awed. Soldiers referred to him affectionately as the Little Corporal, a nickname that allowed him to appear humble while commanding absolute authority. The psychological tactics he employed with his troops were both subtle and profound. Napoleon understood the balance between fear and reward. A soldier who disobeyed or faltered could expect severe punishment, but one who exceeded expectations would be celebrated in front of the entire regiment, his loyalty and courage immortalized in story and song. This combination of fear and admiration created a bond that went beyond ordinary military discipline. Soldiers were not simply following orders, they believed they were part of something larger than themselves, a destiny carefully crafted by Napoleon himself. Beyond the battlefield, Napoleon's manipulative genius extended into politics. The French Revolution had created chaos, and the country was ripe for a man who could project order, authority, and vision. Napoleon seized this opportunity with extraordinary precision. The coup of 1799, which brought him to power, was not simply a military takeover, it was a psychological masterpiece. He orchestrated events so that key politicians and military leaders believed they were acting with their own free will, while in reality, Napoleon controlled every detail. People believed they were shaping history, but history was shaping them through Napoleon. Even in personal relationships, Napoleon's psychological insight was formidable. He knew how to charm and control people, appearing reasonable or vulnerable at just the right moment. Take Josephine, his first wife. Napoleon carefully nurtured her affection and admiration, making her feel indispensable, even while he manipulated events to ensure his own advantage. This was a pattern throughout his life, the creation of perceived equality and trust while maintaining absolute control. People were drawn to him, unaware that they were walking into his carefully constructed web of influence. Napoleon's military campaigns also revealed the depths of his manipulative genius. He was not just a strategist of armies, but of minds. In every battle, he considered not only terrain and tactics, but also the psychology of the enemy. He anticipated fear, hesitation, and overconfidence, exploiting these to his advantage. His campaigns in Italy, Egypt, and across Europe show a pattern. Napoleon first studied the minds of his opponents, then shaped events to create confusion, fear, and compliance. His ability to predict human behavior on such a massive scale remains unparalleled. Yet Napoleon was not infallible. His greatest mistakes came when his overconfidence blinded him to the limits of his influence. The Russian campaign of 1812 is a testament to this. He believed his army could impose his will on an entire nation, but he underestimated the harsh winter, the vast distances, and the resilience of the Russian people. Even a master manipulator can fall victim to overreaching ambition. But even in failure, there are lessons to be learned about psychological control, leadership, and the human desire to follow powerful figures. Napoleon also understood propaganda long before it was a modern concept. He carefully managed public perception, controlling how events were reported, how victories were celebrated, and how failures were framed. Every battle, every decree, every speech was designed to shape the narrative, to make people believe in his inevitability, in the righteousness of his cause, and in their own destiny to serve him. He knew that reality is often less important than perception, and he mastered the art of creating reality in the minds of others. His legacy is not just the territories he conquered or the battles he won. It is the demonstration of how psychological mastery can shape history. By understanding human desires, fears, and weaknesses, Napoleon was able to bend the world to his vision. His life is studied not only by historians and military experts, but by psychologists, leaders, and anyone seeking to understand power. The lessons are clear. Influence is rooted not just in strength or skill, but in the ability to understand and manipulate the human mind. Napoleon's story also serves as a cautionary tale. The same skills that allowed him to rise so spectacularly also contributed to his eventual downfall. Overreach, hubris, and the failure to anticipate human resilience ultimately brought an end to his empire. Yet even in exile on the island of St. Helena, he continued to shape perceptions, writing memoirs, dictating letters, and influencing the historical narrative to preserve his image. This relentless attention to psychological control, even in defeat, underscores the extraordinary power of understanding human behavior. So, what can we learn from Napoleon Bonaparte? First, power is rarely about brute force alone. True influence comes from understanding people, their fears, desires, motivations, and weaknesses, and shaping circumstances to guide them. Second, mastery of perception can be as decisive as mastery of strategy. Napoleon understood that if he could control the story, he could control the people. And finally, even the greatest manipulators are human, and their ambitions can lead to both spectacular successes and catastrophic failures. Napoleon Bonaparte was more than a general, more than a statesman. He was a master of the human mind. His genius was not just in the battles he won, but in the people he influenced, the loyalty he inspired, and the fear he commanded. He reminds us that history is not shaped only by actions, but by the unseen forces of persuasion, manipulation, and psychological insight. If you want to dive deeper into the minds of history's most manipulative leaders, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. And I want to hear from you. Which historical figure do you think mastered manipulation the most? Comment below and let's discuss the psychology of power.